Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Developer Dynasty here on our Wolverine Studios .com Twitch channel. We are super excited to bring to you the next iteration of our Developer Dynasty tonight, talking draft day sports, Pro Football 2022. As always, on our Football Developer Dynasties, I am joined by the game's creator and lead developer, Brooks. Brooks, say hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody.
We put in a lot of good work this week as we get the game closer to its availability for first access. We don't have an exact date yet on that, so I'll kind of stay off that question right out of the gate. No exact date for first access yet, but we are about to do kind of the last run-throughs internally with a couple of private testers, and then we will be on to first access. So if you joined us last week, which we had a great turnout on the stream last week, we talked about some of the new things that are coming in Pro Football 22, like the rework of the overall calculation, your ability to customize that. We talked about a lot of new contractual and financial changes that have come to the game, including we talked about restricted free agency as an option in multiplayer leagues, and the things that go along with that, with tendering contracts and stuff like that, and also some changes to some of the strategy scenarios. And of course, as you see on the screen, the new interface for the 2022 versions, building off of that AU platform that we've been using the last couple of years, and we've changed it from that light mode to a dark UI for this year's seasons, which so far everybody's been super positive about, and I'm really excited with what we've been doing there. A couple of guys in the chat, New Orleans 34, Rockmoss, good to see you guys here. Everybody else, feel free use that chat box to make comments, suggestions, ask questions. You've got the ear of Brooks here. He can answer your questions about the things that you're looking for in this year's game, changes that have been made so far, changes that we're still working on, all that kind of good stuff.
I see you already updated the left-hand nav to be a little darker color. I like it. I like the contrast on it. Makes it a little easier to see the menu.
Yep, that was a comment that that you had made. A couple other people made to me, and when I went back after the last stream, I realized that I just coded it wrong. So that was just error on my part, because I looked at it and I said, wait a minute, basketball doesn't look like this when I'm looking at the 2022 game, and there's something wrong here. And I just went back and I was like, oh yeah, there's there's just a line in the code I changed the wrong color to. So now you're looking at the proper menu color there on the left side.
Yeah, that's pretty normal. I spent, I don't know, 3 hours the other day trying to speed up some performance issues I was running into with simming week to week. I recoded it, and then I realized there was just one line of code that was off, and I just deleted that one line of code, and it cut performance penalties in half. So I'm like, well, there's 3 hours down the drain, but that's the way development goes. So
yeah, and I think it's kind of funny to talk about those sort of things that for people who don't have any coding background whatsoever, and are amazed at how these games come to life. There are so many times where we will spend, people think, well, how just turn it around, knock it out, right? No, I mean, there's days you spend looking at one. Oh yeah, simple. Should have found that one. So we've got. I'm just kind of clicking through the roster screen. One of the first things I want to show off is something that I know everybody's been sort of interested in. Let me pull up a better version of that there. And it's the player card. This is something that we redesigned in the pro basketball and college basketball game last year, and people just went nuts for how good it looked. And they kept, they wanted it done to the football games, but it was already past the development period on that. And, I said that, we'll work it into this year. So here's a look at the revamped player card. We've got that kind of gradient header with the team colors, the logo huge in the background. Um, the relevant stats for each player up here. And something that Brooks just added in today was changing that personality and personal values from kind of bar graphs and stuff like that to this brand new radar charts. And I really like it. Brooks, that was something that when you showed it to me this afternoon, I was like, wow, that looks great on that screen, especially with the contrast in colors and things like that. So for anybody who's not familiar with what those things are showing with the personality and personal values, why don't you kind of give them a quick overview of that?
Yeah, I mean, radar charts they're hard to find a good place for. And I've been asked to do this for a couple of versions now, and I get it. I mean, they look really cool, but you have to pick the right spot to do it. And in this particular case, because because the personality ratings, or the personality, yeah, ratings, and those personal values, I haven't really decided if that's the um, ultimate name that we're going to give that. But because those are all, in essence, even, there's not really a particular weight to any of them. The spider or the radar graph works really well. So you can kind of see at a moment's glance what do they really value more than other things, or what parts of their personality are larger than others. Um, and so, yeah, somebody reminded me that I was going to look at these radar charts, and I thought this particular um, place was a good spot for it. And this page looks fantastic, and I like that we're continuing to make these things brand adherent. We're continuing to try and tie off the basketball games and the football games, but football data is different than basketball data, and I think we're keeping the spirit of what the brand is looking for, and keeping consistency across the games while still allowing the football numbers to work the way that they should for people who are playing the football game. So I'm really happy with how it turned out, and I'm having fun exploring some of these different ways of looking at these different graphs. And we may still play with it a little bit. We may tweak some colors or some fonts, or we might explore some other treatment of the player skills on the right. And there's always little things that we can do, but just having this with the dark theme applied to it, and the still all the benefits we had before, but with some new things thrown in, is a lot of fun to work on.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I really like about this AU platform that we're on, and I mention it all the time, and I'll give another shout out to Sean Sullivan in case he's listening. Uh, I like to joke with him and kid with him, but Sean built something really amazing, and I like the fact that as we explore it more, we find new things to do and find different, more creative ways to do them. And you start making one change, like we changed the overall look of the UI this year to be dark, and then we said, okay, now we want to change the player card to look more like what I did in basketball last year. And then you had the idea here with the radar charts and the slightly changing the graph on the skill ratings. So it's still familiar to everybody who's played, but it just looks sharper and crisper. And every single year, we're finding new things to do. We're finding new ways to display data, and new ways to kind of make it more attractive. And I love the fact that we can do all of these things on this platform.
Yeah, the platform has been the key to unlocking a bunch of this tech that I personally have been working with for the better part of 20 years. So, being able to blend the coding aspects and the low level code that the AI uses, and the CPU, and the actual game engine itself, but now we get all the benefits of modern UI presentation, and it's just been a lot of fun to marry the two together, and we'll keep improving it as we go. I think it's a little better with every iteration. So
Yeah, and I think about when I started playing what we called tech sims. At the time way back in the late 90s, I guess. Um, and I look at what we're doing now, and I would have never imagined that, you know, games like that could look the way that we are able to, to make them look. And I'm really, really excited with how every year we're able to kind of up the level here.
Yeah, I mean, just creating an engine is hard enough, but
Yeah.
creating an engine that's, based off ratings and not just all spreadsheets and still pleasant to look at and fun for people to look through. I mean, we want people to be in these screens. We want people to be looking at these charts. We want people to take the advantage of the information that it's showing. Like if a player's overly motivated by money or, overly motivated by market size or whatever. I mean, having these kinds of charts would show that kind of thing, and it makes it a little easier for the general masses to look at these charts and look at this player and maybe glean a little bit of information about them that you couldn't immediately see just by looking at just sheer numbers. So we want people to enjoy it. We want people to appreciate the look. We want nice. It's a source of pride. So yeah, I'm excited about it, and we'll keep doing it.
Yep, and for people who are new to the game and things like that, the personality and personal values are not just numbers that we've thrown on a screen here to make cool looking radar charts. With all of these things impact something in the game. So I know there's a lot of sports game you know players out there that are frustrated, maybe is the right word, with what happens in some bigger budget titles than ours. Um, and it's really just a race to grab the highest overall player, and you're pretty much good, and you can kind of work around everything that you need to build super teams and kind of mess with the AI and take advantage of it. All of these factors make each player in our games super unique, and it's actually managing. Um, you know, it puts you in the role of managing this roster. It's not just you spend 5 seconds, grab a player, and you're good to go. We had people talk about last week in the stream how they appreciated the new look because it would be easier on their eyes at 3 in the morning, as they played one more turn. And that's why you get sucked in until 3 in the morning, because you got to look and see, okay, this guy's got a terrible work ethic. The guy I just pulled up on the screen here, Joe Elmore, 56 work ethic. How is that going to impact him on this team? Even though he's got great hands, he's got good speed, he's got high agility. He's a decent overall player with a 76 rating here. But look at all this other stuff. His disposition 64, sportsmanship 55. All these things Brooks has worked into making it actually managing a team of football players, and not just looking for whoever's the highest overall player.
Yeah, absolutely. These things do matter. And I mean, if you were to put together like a statistical multivariate analysis of all this stuff, where you basically take every single variable in the game and figure out how does that affect a contract signing versus not signing? How does this affect, a player on the field? How does it affect morale? How does it affect, trade values? Right? There's so many variables, but they all matter. Some matter less, some matter more. Some we have dialed in pretty well. Others will continue to tweak. But I mean, these things all do matter. And a lot of times we'll get people on the forums or whatever asking, why did a player sign this deal and not that one, or why did the player go to this team and not this other one, right? There are questions about that, and usually it boils down to taking a look at those ratings and making sure that they're they're taking into account even when you're viewing this. And the really super advanced players will track all of these things, better than average, and will be able to find those diamonds in the rough, or find players that would sign with them that they might not normally think they had a shot at or whatever, just because they happen to be paying attention to all of these details. So it's there for people who want to put the time in, but at the same time, it's also we don't try to overdo it. We want to make sure that even entry level people, beginners to the game, are still able to enjoy it and have fun and be successful.
Yep, and there's a couple questions, Brooks. I'll let you get to those. While Brooks is going through those, and he can answer them here. I just pulled up the coach page so that everybody can see that the coach screens have also been updated to kind of fit this new the new look for the player and coach cards.
Yeah, Talon's asking about hometown or home state for players. I'll add that to my list to look at. I'm not sure what we have available to us, but I'll add it to my list. Um, Part of the problem is that we tend to have these things for incoming college kids, but we need to make sure it maps appropriately to the pro level. So we'll take a look at that. Nolans is asking about fan base changes over time based on team performance. Asger's done a lot of work on that area in the last couple of versions of the game. So I want to say yes, that fan base does actually adjust over the years as teams win. It drives obviously more revenue, more wins, more fans to the team. So those do get affected. Yeah, tutorial mode. That one is that one's tough. So the with the limited staff that we have, we basically have a 3-man team, and none of us are full time on either of the football games. We have to kind of choose at times between, writing documentation, writing guides, filming YouTube videos, putting things into the UI, answering forum posts and questions that way, hanging out in the Slack channels and answering questions. And unfortunately, we just don't have enough time or resources to really do full tutorials or full 100-page guides on how to do all this stuff. So we do try and put as much as we can up on the forum. We try and put as much as we can on our support site. As we write articles or as other people in the community write articles, we try and grab all of that. So we're trying to keep it in one place to make it easier to find. But that's always going to be a struggle. That's always something that we're working on. And I just again with the 22 versions of the games, we'll get better at some of it, and I'm sure there'll still be people that wish there was more documentation and more instructions on how to do everything. But that's just going to evolve over time. And if folks out there are playing the games and they have a good idea on how this kind of stuff works, and you want to write up an article or you want to record a YouTube video or talk about let's plays or whatnot, then reach out to us and ping us, and we'll grab that content. We'll share it on our YouTube pages, and we'll post it in the various places where people can get to it. And we would appreciate the help of the community at large for that.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge opportunity, for people in our, community to get involved. If you follow our Twitter channel and our Instagram channel, especially, we've been working with a company who's been doing a lot of good content for us. If you are, playing on Twitch or YouTube and stuff like that, like Brooks said, as long as either we'll stumble onto it eventually, or if you just point it out to us, we will we'll grab that, we'll share it, we'll retweet it, we'll put it in our YouTube playlist. I know Asger, I think for college football, did a couple of recruiting videos and stuff like that last year that we've shared and made part of our YouTube. We have different groups on our YouTube channel for each game. So there's a couple of tutorial videos on what to do in college football for recruiting and stuff like that, and we put those out through our social channels as well last year. But if you don't have to be officially associated with us to do that kind of stuff, and we appreciate the help of the community. They do mods, they do all kinds of cool things for the games, and share them with the rest of the community. So there's an opportunity for people in the community who maybe they aren't great at making mods, maybe they don't have the software to do it, the time to do it, but maybe you understand how something really works in the game and you can share your knowledge. with the rest of the community. So there's definitely an opportunity, for you to kind of do that, and we will be more than happy to share it, link to it, shout it from all of our social channels to to help other players get into the game, because that's really the easiest way for somebody to be a new player in the game, is to see other people do it. And I know GM Games, shout out to them. They do some great they do some great content. We try to share as much of their stuff as possible. But there is definitely opportunities out there for people in our community to become really big content creators on our games, and we'll be happy to share what you're doing to elevate your your voice on the social channels. And we absolutely would appreciate that help.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would write more articles, but they're afraid to share what they know because they don't want to get beat. They don't want to lose to people who are using their own strategies against them, and that's fair enough. If you want to just be a little vague and a little general about the ways to do things, we'll take that too. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to give away any of your secrets, but yeah, by all means, if you're willing, please share, and we'll gladly take the help on that front. And as always, feedback is more than welcome as you're playing through the games. Like if you're recording things and you're playing on YouTube or whatever, send us the links. We do watch the videos. We watch how people play the games. We definitely want to kind of get user feedback, even if you're not giving it to us directly. We can kind of glean some things by watching people play our game. So, by all means, share as much as you can. Share what you do. Share what you like. Share what you don't like. And you never know, we may be able to take some of that and take advantage of it, put it into the game.
Yep, and we with this platform too, we've tried to do things like I just rolled over here on the screen this question block to to kind of give you things inside the game that could be helpful. If you come across something like that where you say, hey, I know what's going on, but maybe a new player might need some help with this. Even just send us a quick note, and we'll see if we can work little help rollovers onto certain screens.
Yeah, ideally, I would have one of those little help icons on every single screen, just so you have some idea of where to start, some idea of what you should be looking at on these different screens. So, again, it's a priority thing, but we'll do what we can to get a few more of those into this year. And if you have ideas on places where you struggle, then please let us know. And that doesn't have to be just screens and how to play the game. It could be feedback on features or various aspects of the game. One of the things we added recently, if you go to a offensive lineman and look at their stats, Gary, there's people were complaining about not always being. A defensive lineman. I misspoke. Okay. People were asking how they could better evaluate their defensive tackles and their defensive ends. And so I'm looking at this screen and I'm not seeing what I added. So it could be that it's not in the build. So one of the things we did add is hurries and pressures, or hurries and knockdowns. Sorry. So it's not on this particular screen yet. I'll have to add that to my list. But they're in the box scores and they're in the season leaders. So basically, people were wanting to have better access to hurries and knockdowns. There they are.
Yep.
For defensive players. So now it's not just sacks, right? Like how do you evaluate, rushing defensive tackles or rush ends or whatever? And, I took a look at it. I'm not one that normally likes to add a bunch more stats because I don't want to get overwhelmed with things. But in this case, it was good feedback. I thought it was a good idea. So, yeah, I took advantage of it, went ahead and put hurries and knockdowns in so that you get to see kind of who's at least getting to the quarterback, even if they're not getting a sack. So that's valuable feedback. Somebody was asking, hey, do you track this? Why can't, can we see it? If you don't track it, can you track it? Because we think it'd be valuable to evaluating defense. I'm like, oh, absolutely. I'll take a look at it. And we got that put in. So even though we're going into a beta period and a first access period, that doesn't mean that everything's sealed off. If if you have a good idea or you have a request, get it to us somehow, Slack, the forum, whatever, and we'll definitely take a look at things.
So I know that there's some changes to things going on with practice squads, and I came back to the roster page here. Um, why don't you kind of let everybody know what's happened there?
Yep. So that was another piece of feedback that we got a while back. So right now, there's a practice squads are basically just places to stash players. They don't really have, there's no rules around who can be on a practice squad or whatever, which is not totally, in line with NFL rules. But again, this is a pro football simulator. It's not NFL simulator. So we take liberty with some of these things to make the game a little easier to play, to make it less complicated than the NFL really is, and so on and so forth. But one of the things that people asked over the last couple of versions is practice squad claims, so that you can't just stash people on there and hide them for a season or whatever. It's not super realistic. If a kid was on a practice squad, he's a 100 overall player or whatever, that kid wouldn't stay there, right? And normally some other team would sign them to the active roster. So we're going to open that up. It's now an option in the option screen to allow teams, when they're looking to sign free agents to their team during the season, now they're able to actually sign players away from the practice squad. When you do that, it puts them on your active roster. You got to keep them on your active roster. But that is a new piece that we've added. The Yeah, and then there's a maximum experience setting as well, so you can determine whether you want, players with 3 years of experience. Like if they have more than 3 years of experience, they can't be on a practice squad. If you want to leave it to just players with 0, 1, or 2 years or whatever, you'll have that ability. So hopefully that encourages a little bit more player movement, similar to the way that we're doing restricted free agency, or we're trying to give teams more options and more, throughout the season concepts that you can take advantage of. That whether it's online leagues or your own personal leagues, just to keep those players moving around, to keep people interested throughout the season, even if they're not having a winning season or whatnot. So those are a couple of aspects that we've added for PF22.
Yeah, and there are so many options through here. You can. There's so much you can do in the game to customize it, not only with the graphics and the pictures and the logos and all that kind of stuff, but I mean, just I highly encourage you to spend some time when you get your hands on the game in the options screen and just see all of the things that you can tweak to make it, exactly the type of experience that you're looking for in a game. There's so many things you can change and tweak, and we talked about the financial stuff last week. That the contracts by position is a really really important update this year that should alleviate a lot of people's issues that they had with and certainly fair issues with some of the contract stuff. But your feedback gets heard and it gets taken, and we might not be able to do it right away, but it gets stored away and and constantly gone back to in order to make the game more user friendly, more options, more of everything that you're looking for.
Yeah, so CD Cool is asking about the 2D engine. There have been some changes that we're doing to that as well. We'll probably save that for next week to talk about. But I mean, you can certainly show in the screen just to see what the dark mode looks like on that screen. Yeah, that's. I'm looking through seeing if I missed any comments. I guess. Are you guys ever considering physical growth of players like body weight that may impact player attributes? I don't. I don't know that we have that in there to actually change their body weight. I know that their physical attributes change based on training, but we don't really have anything in there like weight training to try and bulk them up or slim them down. Um, that is something that we could look at in the future. But yeah, right now that's not really taken into account in the game. Um, and Talon's asking about evaluating offensive linemen the same way as we're doing defensive linemen. If you guys have ideas on how better, other than pancakes, which is albeit not a perfect, measure, but how to evaluate your guard or your tackle. Right now we have pancakes where you could tell if they're just flattening people, and we have um, sacks allowed, so that you can kind of tell if they got beat and allowed a sack on the play. But there's not a whole lot else that I've been able to come up with that would make that kind of thing easier. So if you come up with any, let us know. We'll definitely take a look at it. I'd love to be able to get a little bit more in there for the offensive linemen as well.
Yep. And as requested, I kind of pulled up the in progress 2D page. There's still some changes I'm working on this particular screen, so this will probably get a little bit different look by the time it's final. But this is really fun for me to watch. I know way back when I first started talking to Brooks and trying to get him involved in Wolverine Studios. The coolest thing he had going on his prior game was, in my opinion, the 2D. I love seeing a visual representation of watching the game. And there's a sack there, so I apologize for the cheering. But I like seeing the game played out. It reminds me of early games like XOR football or something like that. That this is obviously way cooler and better than. But I really like to see how the game plays out. I like the excitement of even the first play there from scrimmage. My running back had like a 40-yard run. I was trying not to say it out loud, but I was hoping that he was going to keep going for the end zone there, just to watch him move down the screen. So I really think that's a cool feature in the game that really makes it a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's obviously one of the core tenets of the game engine itself, is allowing that physics based interaction, that positioning on the field that we're constantly tracking, so that we know at any point in time where a player is. If a player is moving left, and they were moving left. If a player is wide open and they have 99 speed, then you're not going to catch them, and it's automatic touchdown. And I really wanted to make it, based on physics and fluid and realistic, and not just based on numbers and dice rolls. So I mean, there's a fair amount of dice rolls and whatever that happened in a game as you make all these checks and as the AI does stuff. But the actual movement on the field, that's that's mainly driven by how strong a player is, how fast they are, how agile they are, how smart they are, and so on. So I will always keep that as part of the core of the game, and it allows for really neat ways of seeing the action unfold on the field.
Yep, and then here's the box score from that game, so you can see the hurries and knockdowns. I know they weren't on, they were there, but they were zeros in the games I had seen before, so I probably had seen those before it was pulled in. But here, everybody can see there's hurries and knockdowns in the stats from that I just simulated right there.
Yep. We got a good discussion going about hurries and missed blocks and whatnot for offense. So I love the discussion. We'll keep it going on Slack, and I love getting the feedback because it helps me find opportunities for improvement in the game, and I definitely try and take advantage of that when I can, as long as the engine supports it. In some cases, it would cause hundreds of hours of work and not necessarily be something that's feasible. But if it's reasonable, I think we've shown over the years that we're willing to knock this stuff out and improve the game in lots of different cases.
Yep, and CD Cool, I saw you come in late. We mentioned right at the top of the stream that, of course, there will be first access, as there are for all of our games. We do not have an official date for that, but it's going to be very, 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 very soon. So uh, keep your eyes out for that.
Yeah, Invisible Witness is asking about punt and kick returns in the 2D view, and that's one of those things that the engine doesn't support at the moment. That would require a significant amount of work on my part to get put in. So, unfortunately, it's not something that I'll be able to get into 22, but it certainly is. It's one of those things that's kind of always on the list, and if we ever get to a point where we have the bandwidth and the priority to do it, then we'll take a look at it. But making a 2D view of a actual punt or kickoff return and make it still align with stats and still align with NFL norms, with pro football norms and whatnot is it's a huge challenge. And the times I have looked at it, I haven't made a whole lot of progress on it. So unfortunately, that's something that won't be in 22, but it's definitely on the list. And hopefully, one of these iterations will be able to get something like that going.
Yep, and a lot of times, when we do get feedback or requests or stuff like that, we do that. We'll sit down and we'll look at it and we'll kind of see, okay, what is going to be the benefit of this? What is the amount of time and effort? What will not get in if we try to go with this, and what's going to make the biggest impact, in terms of the overall game for the most people. So sometimes it just comes down to a time thing and choosing what will impact, kind of make the biggest impact for the most amount of people, or the biggest impact in the game itself. Brooks, is there anything you want me to take a look at here before we wrap it up for the night?
No, I think you covered quite a bit of it. I think the UI is looking great, and we're managing to get to most of the screens. And like I said, we're getting really close to being able to put this in people's hands to take a look at and to help us, polish off the last few issues that we have. So thanks to everybody for their support and for the feedback and for the chat and whatnot. And we look forward to seeing you on the Slack channels and, in future streams.
Yep. So that's gonna do it for this week. We're gonna go back and get back to the code. I saw a couple of things that I want to change up in some of the UI things, and I know we still have a short list of items we're finishing up. We're gonna get that internal testing going, and then we will let you know with a first access release date as soon as we have chosen it. We want to get it in your hands as quickly as possible. We know football season is quickly approaching, and we want everybody to be able to get on board with Draft Day Sports Pro Football 2022. So that's going to do it for us tonight. Thank you all for coming to the stream. Thank you for your great questions, the great comments. That's the biggest reason why we do these streams. We're excited to get back to them. For all you basketball fans, the Developer Dynasty for Pro Basketball 22 will be picking up as we wind this one down, and we'll have news on that pretty soon. So thanks everybody for coming out tonight, for participating, and make sure you keep sharing things on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, any other social platforms you're on. Get your friends into the game. You are our biggest assets out there for selling this game. We do our very best to make you happy and to encourage you to keep coming back year after year. And we thank you for all the people that you tell, all your friends, all the people who run leagues, all the people who do the mods and everything else that make this community so great. So thank you guys for joining us tonight, and we will see you back here next Wednesday, 8 o'clock again, for some more information on Pro Football 22, and hopefully some information on our first access program and getting the game into your hands. So thanks everybody, and have a great week. We'll see you next week.